Hi, I'm Nicole, and I want to tell you a bit about my story of how I came into a relationship with God. I've been known as many things throughout my lifetime: the shy girl, the smart girl, the sassy girl, the awkward girl, the tall girl, the emotional girl, the good girl. For most of my life, I believed that what other people thought of me was who I actually was. I grew up going to church with my family fairly frequently. I never doubted that God existed, but usually Sundays for me were spent dreading going to church. Throughout my childhood, my family was constantly seeking out a new church to call home. It turned into a lifetime of church hopping, being shoved into and pulled out of Sunday school classes just as I was getting comfortable. As a shy girl, it was extremely hard on me, and before I knew it, I dreaded Sundays with every ounce of my being, despising the fact that I would be shoved into and ripped back out of another uncomfortable situation full of new people. Church came with the nearly unbearable anxiety of having to consistently be around new people. By my last year of elementary school, in sixth grade, my identity became the smart girl because I was accepted into a charter school that was starting in my school district. I was challenged in my schoolwork and had a new learning environment, which I loved, but my friends from before no longer wanted to be friends with me. The rejection I felt from the girls that I used to be friends with devastated me. I became apathetic toward my school, my family, and the friends that I had, and this apathy pushed me to the decision to go back to regular schooling for middle school, hoping to be reaccepted by my elementary school friends. But in middle school, I was awkward and weird. I think we can all agree that middle school is a hotbed of awkwardness. So when a friend invited me to go with her to a church retreat on a weekend outside of school, I was really, really excited. At the retreat, her youth pastor sat down with me and explained the gospel to me. He told me how I'm a sinner and I'm separated from God, but that God loves me so much that he wants to be in a relationship with me, that he sacrificed his own son to make it happen. He then told me that I could pray a prayer and that I would accept Jesus into my life. And by doing that, I would have a relationship with God and be able to go to heaven. I said yes, mostly because I was afraid to say no to this pastor, and all I heard was, if you don't do this, you don't go to heaven, and I didn't want to go to hell. So I prayed the prayer, and he gave me a Bible, and then encouraged me to read it every day and to pray. Then I had to go in front of the entire youth group and share that I had accepted Christ. As a shy, really awkward, weird girl, this made me really uncomfortable, but when I got up there and told them what had happened, the whole youth group cheered for me. It was a beautiful moment when everyone heard about my decision to follow Christ. It was the first time as though I felt part of my identity was in the family of Christ and not in who I was or the things that I had done or how I felt. As I got back from the retreat, I tried reading my new Bible, but as the smart, book loving girl I was, I did what anyone does and I opened up to Genesis. And when I got there, I started reading all the stories I had experienced in Sunday school, and it just flashed back to the anxiety I felt going to church as a child and gave up on it. As I entered into high school, I was convinced that happiness and worth must come from having friends. So when I met two girls who did not know anyone going to our high school except for each other, I wanted to take advantage. Being mostly friendless still at this time, I became friends with them for completely selfish reasons, knowing they were innocent, naive, and that they would accept me, not knowing that I was shy, awkward, weird, and smart. As it turns out, they were Christians and they frequently invited me to their youth group events. By my sophomore year, I was regularly attending church, youth group, and small group Bible study, and I understood the gospel message and what a personal relationship with Christ looked like. I grew in my faith throughout my high school years and probably prayed to receive Christ about 30 or 40 times because every time I was unsure if it had worked or if it worked when I did it in seventh grade, or why hasn't my life really changed if I continue to pray this prayer? Um, so my junior year of high school, I was still the smart girl and had even earned myself a healthy good girl reputation. So, as my good, smart Christian self, the summer after my junior year, I went on a mission trip to Mexico. While there, I befriended a little boy named Jesus at the orphanage we were working at. Jesus and I played together, and I enjoyed spending time with him and loving him every day that we were at the orphanage. It was a really fun week, and on the last day there, he made me a bookmark that said, Jesus te ama on it, twice. I asked him why he had written it twice, and he said, well, one is from me and one is from Jesus. Later that day, as we were leaving the orphanage, I realized that I would probably never see Jesus again. I began to cry, realizing that I loved and cared for this little boy way more than I had loved or cared for any person in my life. I realized how selfish I had been, and then I realized that if I loved this little boy so much and I've spent a week with him, how much God must love me. Because he's known me forever. He's known me since the beginning of creation. He knit me together and formed me to be just who I am. And that love is so great that he sacrificed his son to die on the cross for me. A little boy named Jesus, abandoned by his parents, had allowed me to truly realize how great God's love is for me, and how my identity is not based on how other people label me, but how God sees me as a clean and spotless daughter. My relationship with Christ has dramatically changed my life. I have had the privilege of living in my identity as a Christ follower all through college, but that didn't come without the constant temptation to find my identity in other things, in my parents and what they thought of me, as a Bible study leader, in a boyfriend, in my schoolwork, in my grades, and now even as crew staff member. The truth is, no matter if I'm funny, shy, good, awkward, or weird, whether I'm a daughter, a girlfriend, a Bible study leader, a straight A student, or a crew staff member, my identity is not in those things. It is in He who created me to be that way. 1 Corinthians 15:10 says, "But by the grace of God I am what I am." And I can tell you this, I rest easy in the fact that God created me to be exactly who I am. And He loves me just the way that I am. And He calls me to live my life in response to that. I'm so thankful for the way that God has changed my life. And I hope you can be encouraged by my story. Thanks for listening.